So it's the new year. And we're all talking about resolutions, or everyone else is talking about resolutions in that. So I decided today to take an idea, and let's look at this idea of creating our life. So I'm going to walk you through some basic science of mind principles. These are the principles that we teach, and we find these principles true in all spiritual paths. And so we're going to go through these principles, and then we're going to bring it into a practical way of how do we use that in our lives. So the first thing I want to say is science of mind teaches that we change our lives through the renewing of our mind. Renewing of our mind that's where everything starts. It starts with the thoughts that we have. And until we change, till we shift the mental atmosphere meaning the collective consciousness that we are, nothing in our lives will change. And it's fascinating. I go to the gym. I've been a gym monkey for 45 years. And every January, that gym is packed. And people are busting, they're lifting, they're grunting, they're sweating, they're groaning, they're doing all sorts of noises. A month later, they're gone. They come back 11 months later, and they're bigger and more out of shape. Here's the key. It has nothing to do with anything but the fact that they haven't shifted their mental idea, their mental image of their own body. You see, it all starts with this. It's the mental shift that followed by the word shift, followed by the thought shift, followed by the action shift that drives the process. But it's got to start with an image that we create in our own mind. Okay? The next thing we know is that we know that the renewing of our mind changes our world because we know it's true, because the only world that we can experience is the one that we can mentally embrace. If we can't conceive of a new type of relationship, if we can't conceive of a new job, if we can't conceive of a different body, of a healthier body, if we cannot even build the conception in our mind through fantasy, however you want to do it, it's not going to happen in reality. Because the world will only give that which we perceive when it's filled with belief on top of the perception. The movie The Secret was a wonderful movie. But it was so metaphysically light, it was incredible. Because what did it say? Just change your thoughts. All you got to do is change your thoughts. You see, it's not just about changing your thoughts. You can change your thoughts and nothing's going to change for you. You've got to get out there and you've got to speak according to those thoughts. And you've got to take action according to those thoughts. You've got to align everything in you without any hesitation, with deep conviction, and you've got to be persistent and consistent in the pursuit of that dream. And as you're changing that mental atmosphere, as you're speaking from that mental atmosphere, as you're acting from that mental atmosphere, now your world begins to change. But this idea, and this happens a lot in metaphysics and in New Thought, is that it's all about just the thought. No, it's not. So many times, I'm just going to lead, everything's good. Well, what are you doing? I'm just thinking it's good. Well, you doing anything different at work? No, I know my boss is going to be different to me just because I'm thinking it. Well, do you think maybe if you did something different at work, like how you interacted with people, how you applied yourself in the job, how you made the customers feel better, more loved, more wanted in that, how you really saw the benefit of your job supporting your higher values, how if you came in with that atmosphere and you took those actions, now the world would change? It's not just about thought. It's so much more than thought. Anyone who wants to change their state of mind, their mental atmosphere, has the power to do so. That's the critical thing. Everybody in this planet has the ability to change their mental atmosphere. And it comes back to this. There is a power within us that responds to us, that works through us to create our lives, and we just got to understand. This is one of my top 3 affirmations I do in a day. I do 25 to 30 affirmations every day, 108 times. Why? Because I'm feeding my subconscious mind. This is affirmation number 4. There's a power within me, responding to me, that creates through me all of my dreams. I want to embrace, I want to anchor myself into the belief, into the conviction that the power is right here. It's not out there. It's not in another human being. It's not another human being giving me praise. It's me believing that I am the creator of my life that gives me power. You see, we've been taught what is it? I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were talking about how difficult it is to be a star in the world. Because when you're a star, you're treated differently. When you're a movie star, Tom Cruise, he's treated differently. Tom Cruise can't go anywhere without someone wanting to do a selfie. He can't just go to the grocery store and buy a toothbrush. His world has changed because of that. So think about it. Is he mature enough to handle that? I think he is. But then take Justin Bieber. Think about him. From the age of 9, he's been put on this pedestal. There's really an adjustment that has to happen to say, wait a second, where am I? What is my reality? And you've got to really reflect on that. You've really got to create an atmosphere on that to come out into the world. By transforming, we change our lives by transforming, healing, treating our mind. We change the outcome of our actions previously set in motion by a former mindset. We are not bound by what we've been in the past. Ernest Holmes liked to use the word, instead of prayer, he used treating. He says, we're going to treat the mind. In other words, we're going to treat the mind to see it differently. And in treating the mind to see it differently, we build that new mental atmosphere. That's what we teach in our classes. How do we do mental treatment? How do we shift that consciousness so that we can demonstrate that? We can do this in any area of our life. That's really critical. Any area of our life, we can change. We have the power within us to do so. Here's the first thing, though, is we have to come out of survival mode. So many times things happen in our lives and we go into survival mode. It could be the death of a father. My cousin Janice just lost her father. He was 100 years old and 3 months. He just passed away yesterday morning. And before he passed, she and I had a conversation. I knew to call her. I called her, and we talked about it. We talked about the idea, and I said, Janice, you're going to grieve. You're going to feel sad. You're going to feel a sense of relief. Because I remember 6 years ago now when my mother died, I grieved. Nothing mattered, but in that moment, I had to survive in that moment dealing with my grief. How do I come to grips with it? I go back to the idea when I lost my job 3 different times in my career. When I lost my job, at that moment, I couldn't go to spiritual practice. First off, I didn't know about it back then. Secondly, I couldn't have gone there because at that moment, survivor meant I had to get a job to bring money in because I was not in a position to not work. So at that moment, when you're in survival mode, or let's say you're faced with a horrific disease in a moment, at that moment, a lot of this other stuff falls by the wayside, and our energy's got to go to doing what we need to do to survive. It's real important that people have a safe place to go, roof over their head, food and water to drink, and enough to survive, money to survive on. You can't think spiritually and go beyond to this connection until those basic needs are met. So when people, and we will all go through this, we will all go into this at forms of our lives. Contrast will come into our life. You know, a lot of times they say in religious science, you're never going to have a bad time. If you really embrace this, you're never going to have a bad time. Poppycock. There will always be contrast. Rest assured, no matter who you are, you can be the greatest. The Dalai Lama has contrast all the time. Every person on the President Obama, President-elect Trump, you name it, they've got contrast. There will always be contrast. No one has what is deemed a perfect light. We've got to get over this idea, and we have to embrace the idea that everyone is dealing with their contrast to raise themselves, because contrast gives us the ability to see life so that we can look through the illusion and see the truth. See, the illusion is that's our reality. The truth is we can change the illusion to something else. The next thing we got to do is, once we're out of survival mode, we got to determine what are our unique values. There's a lot of people here that are here for the first time at Agape. We talk about values all the time. This is totally based on Dr. John DeMartini. Until we know your 5 or top 6 values, you're living your life by someone else's. And until you know your top 5 or 6 values, you do not have a life purpose, because you cannot develop a life purpose without knowing your values. So keep tuned in, because probably in February I'll be doing a workshop on that, where those who haven't can sit down, and in an hour and a half to 2 hours, we will sit down, and when you walk out, you will know what you value. And now you've got something to be the foundation of the core of your life. You see, it's interesting that when you're in the spiritual world, the first thing you're taught in the East is meditate. You get into a state of peace. Nothing more beautiful. But we're not meant to meditate all day long. We meditate so that we can connect, so that we can be at peace. But then we're in the world to create. We're in the world to bring our gifts. But until we know what our values are, how do we know what our gifts are? How do we know how we want to channel that? And so this is what we talk about day in and day out at Agape, is building from this foundation. We create our purpose from our values, and we now use the tools available to us to direct the power that's in us. So many times you hear the word positive thinking. I don't believe in that. Because what's positive for you is negative for you. What's positive for you might be negative for you. But when you know your values and you know your purpose and you're directing your thought toward what you want, that's where the power is. So I'm a real believer in the idea of directed thinking toward what I've chosen to be, not what someone else has chosen for me. My parents had grandiose visions of who they wanted me to be. Guess what? I'm none of those, because I chose to be uniquely Lee. And what I want for you is to be uniquely you. Not live up to anyone's expectations, but the ones that you determine for yourself. Here's the key. If you don't use power, you're going to live your life by the law of averages. In other words, whatever's average out there, whatever the mental atmosphere is around you, you're going to be creating by that experience. You're going to be having an average life. Some people, which means you'll be a statistic. Statistics matter in groups. Statistics do not apply to individuals. Think about this. 33% of the people in the world will get cancer. 33 or 42 or whatever the percentage is will have heart disease. Guess what? There are people that never get that. You get to choose to be that person or not. It's a mental image. And just because something happens, it's not time to judge us, because if it happens to us unconsciously, because we haven't built the mental atmosphere. We haven't taught. We've blindly gone through, so we've got to be able to forgive ourselves. And forgiving ourselves means not blaming ourselves for whatever happens to us, but really to see it as an opportunity to reclaim our power, renew our mind through our practices, and live in a different way. So, there are 9 areas of life. A lot of people have different areas. Mary Morrissey has 4. John DeMartini has 7. I have 9. Why 9? Because it works for me. I look at it this way. My number 1 is spirituality or higher purpose. Because I believe until I connect with something so much greater than me, I'm lost. So I use that as my foundation. After that, there's the intellectual, the educational, the learning aspect, because we have a mind that can think, a mind that can rationalize, a mind that can create. That's important, that we're always nurturing that. We have the prosperity one, the financial abundance one, where if we're giving our gift, money should flow to us. There's always an exchange of energy. We've got the one of physical health. Physical health is, how is this body working in the world? Is this body working for you? But I've also separated from physical health that there's the other one of mental health and well-being. They're interrelated, but yet they're different. Because you may have physical goals for your body, but until you have wellness goals and well-being goals for your body and mind, see, you've got to see both sides of that. Then I've got relationships, intimate and familial. You get to choose. Are these important to you? Or do I lay down a family relationship? Do I lay down an intimate relationship, allow myself to become free and go to a new one? You see, relationships are not meant for life. Relationships are meant as long as they are supporting and growing us. If a relationship is no longer supporting and growing us, there's no purpose in being in relationship. It's taking up time. It's wasting our time. People like to say that all the time. Well, Lee, you've been married 44 years. I correct them, 40 years and almost a month. And the reason I'm still married is because Jean still supports and grows me, and apparently I'm still supporting and growing her. That's why we're connected. And when we go back to the idea of values that we talked about earlier. We've linked our 5 highest values into how they support each other, which makes the relationship come from a deeper level, a meaningful level. So all that we're talking about here is so deeply interwoven and related, and this is what we're going to unfold throughout the year. We're going to unfold each of these pieces so that you can have a better idea. Social, place in society, community involvement. Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? If you're an introvert, how are you social? What will you choose to be social? If you're an extrovert, how are you going to use that gift of being an extrovert in the world? Then you've got contribution. This is where your job, your career, your way of being of service is. Because it's such a feeling when you've given your gift and you've served others in that respect. It is such a gift to know that. And then there's my last one, and no one had this on theirs. You got to have fun. This world is too short. Our lives are too short not to have fun. And so when I'm talking about creating, when I'm talking about how do you create your perfect life, do you have a mental image in each of these areas for yourself? So that when you go to bed at night, can you say, I took this step in this area. I took this step in this area and this step. Can you go through all 9 areas and say, I took one step in the direction of that today? Because if you do that, you have empowered yourself and you will create a life so magnificent because you will build on the tiniest little steps and you can only go up. You see, it's when you stand still that you're not advancing. It's when you're moving forward that you're growing and becoming more. And when you're moving forward, that's where the juice is. That's where the excitement is. Jean and I last night, we were at, is it Jay White? Jay White, he is a Neil Diamond impersonator. And he was at the Eisman. Eisman, what a beautiful venue for any type of event. We saw Sadhguru there. We're seeing him there. We signed up to go to a Bollywood thing in April. And we're watching the people next to us. And these people are probably my age, maybe a couple years older. And they're dead. I don't know what they came to the concert for, but I mean, they were dead. They weren't moving. I mean, they were there in their walkers, their canes, and they sat down there like this. They're dead. I don't know if they thought the music was going to give them a shot in the tuchus and get them going or what, but the music didn't do it for them. And so there's Jean and I. Jean and I are there. We're clapping. We're singing to every song out loud. This guy next to me, he's my age, I know. Now his wife on the other side, she was an attractive, mature woman. And I'm saying, if I went down any of those areas of life, I would have asked him what juiced him. And what I would have probably gotten is, I'm retired. And people take this idea that when I'm retired, I don't have to have goals in my life. Well, the only reason we're in our lives are to create. My Uncle Joe, who died at 100, he had no reason to live. All he was able to do was sit in bed now. You die when you're like that. My mother had no reason to live. She died because there was no reason to be alive. The question I want to really anchor in you is, what is it that's calling from within you, that's desiring to be born, that only you can do? This week, that's what I want you to focus on. What is it that is calling from within you that's desiring to be expressed? And then we'll explore, how do we create that together? Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6700.
6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.